I think when Mike Norvell left Memphis, there were some concerns about the future of this program. But all Ryan Silverfield has done is win football games. And now he has this team on track to potentially win an AAC championship. I think that this is a team that was expected to rebuild, but Silverfield hit the transfer portal hard and he expects to compete for a conference title. We take a deep dive into the Memphis Tigers to see what we should expect from them in 2025. Now, an 11-2 year would be exciting for a lot of programs. And while Memphis is excited about that, they feel like they left something on the table. When you had the passing attack that you did with Seth Hennigan and his wide receivers, you feel like you should have been competing for a conference title. To not make the title game means you have work to do. And while Ryan Silverfield, yes, has won football games, that has been the one thing that he needs to get under his belt. He needs to find a way to win a conference championship because this is a team that's too good, has too many resources to not win one of those. They're so good, they have so much talent. It's really only a matter of time if they continue winning at this clip, but they do have to find a way to get to that point. And this is a group that is not rebuilding. They are reloading this year. They are ready to make a run, and they are hoping to win the entire conference in 2025. Now, doing so requires you to bring in talent to replace the talent you lost. You lose Seth Hennigan, one of the best quarterbacks in school history. You lose Mario Anderson, who was a first team All AAC selection. You also lose your trio of Rock Taylor, Kobe Drake, and Demir Blankenship. That's a trio that was giving teams fits last year, and you have to find players to replace them. We'll obviously dive more into them a little bit later. The offensive line took some big hits. Losing Xavier Hill to the transfer portal, you lose Trent Holler, Jonah Gamble, you lose quite a bit of talent offensively. The defense also saw a number of players leave. And whether that's the NFL draft, Chandler Martin is going to be a big name that you lose. You also lose Davion Ross, AJ Watts, Kobe Minor, Greg Rubin. There are a number of big time players that are no longer going to be playing for Memphis. So you knew that you had to add some talent via the transfer portal. So you bring in guys like Jakari Caldwell, CJ Smith, and Jaden Thompson via the transfer portal at wide receiver. You also bring in Parker Mitchell and Austin Gentle and Travis Burke to play offensive line. You also have quite a bit of depth at the offensive line positions that are going to play. Ethan Newman, Yakiri Walker, Jacob Norcross, Trent Pullen. You have new faces literally everywhere. Your quarterback is a transfer portal player in Brendan Lewis. You have some really exciting young talent that we'll dive into here in a little bit, but you also have talent that's going to start for you on defense. Again, this team reloaded. And when you look at some of the players they bring in, you'll see exactly why that is the case. Some of these guys are going to be here 1 year. You don't do that if you're trying to rebuild for the future. If you're trying to bring in players that are going to play multi-years, you're building for later. This is a team that is building for now, and they are trying to win right now. They understand the resources they have, and I really like that approach by Silverfield and this staff. We'll dive into the offense because the offense will look different, but it still has the ability to be really exciting. Brendan Lewis comes in from Nevada. You look at what he did last year on a 3-10 team, 2,200 yards passing, 16 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. He also ran for 775 yards and 8 touchdowns. Now, one thing about Seth Hennigan is not that he couldn't run, but he's not as mobile as Brendan Lewis is going to be. Now, that does make for an interesting offense that opens up a lot of possibilities for Tim Cramsey in that offense. So you feel like you're going to see a little bit of a different look on offense. But Brendan Lewis has the ability to throw the ball down the field. He was accurate with the Wolfpack, and he has the ability to distribute the ball. The question is going to be who's going to catch the passes for him. We'll dive in more into that in a little bit. Now, the one thing to keep an eye on here is Lewis should be the guy, right? You feel pretty confident about what he's capable of doing. The problem with this is that you just signed AJ Hill, one of the best quarterback recruits that you've ever had. How do you keep him satisfied in the era of a transfer portal where guys are just going to leave if they're not starting right away? Do you play AJ Hill? Do you put him into that offense and give him opportunities to get experience even when you bring in Brendan Lewis? Now, Brendan Lewis very well may be that bridge quarterback until Hill is ready, but I think Lewis has the talent to be the starter full time. The problem is that if he is, does Hill get dissatisfied with how much he's playing and go somewhere else? There were a number of teams that wanted AJ Hill, but the nice thing with Memphis is that they have the money to keep him around. They have the funds, the resources to keep him satisfied in that regard. But are you going to be able to give him enough time on the field where he feels comfortable sticking around and making sure that he's getting enough time on the field? That is the big question for this team. And I don't love that group of 5 teams that if they sign a really good guy, the first question we have to talk about is, well, how long is he going to stick around? It's not that I'm questioning these kids and their loyalty and whatnot. That's just unfortunately part of it. You're going to see guys leave all the time. And you're playing for a group of 5, maybe some of these guys want to play right away. Maybe AJ Hill is really committed to Memphis and wants to help Memphis win, because Memphis is a team that could be in a power conference soon enough. But more often than not, I see some of these players that even if they're not to the tier of AJ Hill, they have a good year or they feel like they're better than the players that they're behind, and they decide, well, I'm going to go somewhere where I can actually get on the field. That is a big question right now. But if not, we get to see what he's capable of doing. And there's a lot of excitement surrounding his game. Every person that has talked about AJ Hill has talked about how exciting he can be and the talent he possesses. That's good for the future of Memphis football. Now, the nice thing is that Brendan Lewis is going to have plenty of talent around him. Greg Dorazia Jr., 228 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground as a pass catcher, 175 yards on 21 catches and 4 touchdowns. Now, those numbers do not do his talent any justice. This is one of the most explosive and dangerous weapons in college football. He has the ability to score on any play. He can make anybody look ridiculous. His agility is insane. His speed will help him run away from people. And I'm excited to see what he can do in a full year under this offense. The running back group also has really good depth. So while he is going to be a focal point of this offense, you also have Sutton Smith returning, you have Makari Bodeford, and you also bring in Frank Peason from Middle Tennessee. So this is a running back group that should be a lot better in terms of depth. And even though I should say you do lose Mario Anderson and Brandon Thomas, Anderson was obviously the stud of the running back group last year. But I think you have a deeper group that's ready to potentially take on an even bigger role this year. I think you're going to see a good rotation and you're going to see some explosive plays that you saw last year. You just get to see it on a more consistent basis. And that's going to be huge because the rushing attack might have to do some more work. The wide receiver position is kind of all over the place right now. You have a lot of new faces coming into the program. You also have some young talent that could potentially take on bigger roles. And that might take some time for Brendan Lewis and AJ Hill to get acclimated with. And those are wide receivers that are looking to separate themselves from the rest. Finding ways to get open is going to help your case the most. But right now we have a bunch of guys that are in the same category. You do bring in Jaden Thompson from Louisville. That's a guy who has big playability. We just didn't see it a ton with the Cardinals. Brady Cluess and Jamari Hawkins are 2 of the returners that are going to get a chance to get one of those starting spots. Marcelo Bussey is going to be another guy. A young player to keep an eye on, Keondae Henry. I think he's another player, one of both ways, right? This is a guy that if he plays well, he could be the best wide receiver amongst this group. If he's not getting playing time, though, you could also, and this goes for anybody really, but Keondae Henry to me is a talented player where he could have a big year if he's put into the right situation and if he plays his way in. I think he has the ability to do that. He's just going to be competing with a lot of talent. You brought in Jakari Caldwell from North Carolina A&T, 530 yards last year and 3 touchdowns. You have other players that could be part of that rotation. You have guys that I think are ready to take on a bigger role. And Henry is one of those guys. But overall, this wide receiver position is as wide open as it's going to be. And that makes for some really exciting potential battles. But also there's some uncertainty right now. And with a new quarterback, that could take some time. It could take some time to get everybody up to speed. Fortunately for them, they do have some time with the schedule they have. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But the tight end position could also play a role while the wide receivers get things sorted out. Bryce Anderson comes in from Iowa Central Community College, had 303 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. Jerry Cross comes in from Penn State. You also have some younger players in Christian Ross and Luke Logan that could also play a role. So overall, the passing attack outside of the quarterback position has a lot of question marks, has a lot of uncertainty. We don't necessarily know who's going to be that go-to guy. And sometimes you kind of take that for granted, especially when you have a trio of Taylor, Drake, and Blakehamsey. You have just a consistency there that you're just kind of used to. You don't necessarily have to worry about it. Once they're gone, though, that's when you truly realize how special that group was. So it's probably going to take a step back, to be completely honest. This is not going to be the same passing attack. It's not going to be the group that finished 20th last year through the air, but this is still an offense that can make big plays. Don't get that mistaken. This is still a really good offense that expects to be one of the better offenses in college football and one of the best in the AAC. And that's how you're going to compete for a conference title, is making sure that your offense does not take a step back despite some of the multi-year starters that you lose. Part of that also has to do with the guys up front, and with the amount of talent you lose, you had to bring in some players to ensure that the drop-off wasn't a great one. Now, you do return 2 starters from last year, Chris Adams at left tackle and Malachi Breland at right guard. Those are 2 guys with good experience in 2024, and they are back. You bring in 3 transfers that will be interesting to watch. Austin Gentle could play center or guard. Right now, we'll have him slated at center. Comes in from Harvard, had 10 starts last year, 31 games of experience with the Crimson. Also had 30 starts in his career there. Parker Mitchell comes in from Richmond, started all 13 games for the Spiders. He will also have Travis Burke taking over the other tackle position opposite of Chris Adams. And he comes in from FIU. He's 6'9", 315 pounds. We'll see if he can take his game to another level. If not, you do have players behind him that could step up. Parker Peterson and Trent Pullen, who comes in from Abilene Christian. Those are 2 guys that are ready to play a role if they need to, whether that's as a rotational piece or as the starter. They are ready. You also bring in 2 Kennesaw State transfers in Ethan Newman and Jacob Norcross to back up the guard positions. And you bring in Yakiri Walker, who's a former UConn transfer, went to Colorado, didn't work out, only played 1 game there last year. He comes to Memphis. He'll be a nice piece to have. If you do need some depth, you have Gentle, like I said, being able to play guard or center. You can put him at guard. Walker can step in at center. You feel pretty good. Again, you don't do that unless you think you're going to compete for a conference title. You don't rebuild with the number of transfers that they brought in that are win now type players. And the offensive line will play a huge role while the skill positions kind of get used to each other and get things sorted out. The offensive line could play a huge role in getting this team to where they need to be. Again, they have high expectations for this year, and the work that they did in the offseason, the talent they bring in, tells you that they are trying to win. They are not trying to build towards the future until it's absolutely clear that they can't get the talent that they want. But right now they can. So they're going to compete as best they can. The defense is really where you might need to take a little bit of time and take a step back and see, okay, how do we mold all of this new talent that's coming in? Because when you look at the returning talent, there is not much, especially when you look at right now, as I'm looking at the 2 deep, you have, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the 2 deep, 4 returning players, 5, 6 total returning players from last year. That's not a ton. That's going to mean that it will take some time to get everybody acclimated with each other. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a transition. You will need time to learn your new teammates. You're going to have to learn their names. You're going to have to learn how they play football. You're going to have to learn, if you're a linebacker and there are 3 new starting linebackers, you have to figure out what your other linebackers are going to do. You also have to worry about, okay, in this call, what is my defensive end doing? How does he typically play this type of call? And how do I work around him? How do I fill the gap that he vacates? How do I do certain things like that? it will take some time. And again, Memphis has time early in the season, but you have so many moving pieces, you have so many new faces that it's going to be a little chaotic at first. And the depth chart that we have right now might not be the depth chart by week 2. You might see plenty of movement. You probably will see plenty of movement. You'll see guys step up, and there are a number of guys that, even though they're not listed as a starter, they are definitely capable of starting for this team. We'll start with the defensive line. William Whitlow Jr. comes back. He entered the transfer portal, does come back after our first team All AAC selection in 2024. 24 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. He is someone that we didn't really expect that from last year, and he took his game to another level. He elevated his game, and that helped this Memphis defense be successful in 2024. Joining him as one of the few returnees is Mon Cole. He didn't have a ton of experience. He was more of a backup with the amount of talent that they had in front of him, but now he gets a chance to be that guy. You also bring in Taylor Burton from UT Martin via the transfer portal. 12 tackles last year, 5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. The second unit right now could very well be the first unit. Rayan Buell comes in from Colorado, the former Ohio transfer. Could be a defensive end player that factors into the rotation. Puda Walker is a big player that could be a fun nose tackle. He'll definitely be part of that rotation as well. Marcus Burris Jr. comes in from Indiana. Kamori Harris played in 1 game last year for Memphis. We'll see what he can do. Zay Green comes in from Western Michigan. He had 29 tackles last year, 4 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Chase Carter coming in from Incarnate Word. So overall, competition galore. That's the one nice thing that Ryan Silverfield has done, is he said, we're going to bring all these guys in and we're going to put them all together, and they're going to compete their butts off, and we're going to figure out what our group looks like. We are going to figure out what kind of team we have early, and we're going to breed that competition early and often. The defensive line is going to be interesting because they're going through a transition with the amount of talent they lose, but there's plenty of exciting players that could keep the success going. The linebacker position, like I talked about, 3 new starters. Everett Rousseau comes in from UAB. Sam Brumfield used to be at Middle Tennessee, went to Virginia Tech, had a successful year at Virginia Tech. Now he comes to Memphis. Cam Burton is coming from Charlotte. Those are guys that were productive at their previous stops. Rousseau had 75 tackles last year, 8 tackles for loss. Sam Brumfield, 60 tackles with the Hokies, 3 tackles for loss. Burden had 63 tackles and 2 tackles for loss for the 49ers. That is a good group of experienced players. Unfortunately for them, they can't really be relaxed with their positions because there's guys behind them that are ready to take a step. Jaden Flaker could be someone that is part of the rotation. We don't really know what we're going to get from him, but he is ready. He's familiar with the system and ready to go. Drew Watts was an absolute star for Nevada. 65 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1 interception. He is someone that will definitely push and will see playing time, whether that's as a starter or a rotational piece. DeMarco Ward comes in from Florida State. After that is where you don't have as much experience, but there's definitely talent to utilize. Cruz Law has a great name, but also will be part of that rotation as well. Comes in from North Carolina. Carmelo Overton and Bronson White are 2 other names to keep an eye on there. Now, the secondary loses quite a bit of talent, whether that's via the transfer portal, whether that's via the NFL draft, graduation. So you bring in multiple starters to replace that talent and multiple depth pieces to factor in as well. Omarion Cooper comes in from Florida State. I think that's a guy who is looking to bounce back. He's looking to get back on track and be an exciting player for this Tigers defense. Has the talent, has the ability. It's just going to come down to execution. Jaden Dennis is one of the returners. He had an okay year last year and is looking to be more of a factor in this secondary. Chauncey Logan is a name that I really like. I think that he ultimately will probably overtake one of these 2 guys for the starting cornerback position. Really surprised that he left James Madison, comes to Memphis after a solid year. He is someone who can be a shutdown corner, very physical, knows what to do when the ball's in the air. He's really fun to watch. Samson Israel could be part of that as well. You also have Miles Pollard coming in from Michigan, Joey Hunter from Akron. So there is plenty of new talent to step up and compete for these starting spots at corner. It's just going to take some time. The safety position sees a transfer in. Chris Bracey comes in from UAB. You also have Cortland Marsh returning, the other returner in this starting group. Jeremiah Jordan comes in from Harding, and Jalen Thompson from Michigan State. Those are two guys that will push for time. So you have a pretty good rotation there. One of the players I want to point out as well is Aisheem Young. As a freshman, there was a ton of excitement surrounding his game. I think that there is still something left in the tank for him, and I think that he could be a really fun piece if he can figure it all out again, if he can rediscover that confidence, if he can get to the point where he is going to be that big time player. I think he still has it in him. It's just going to take some time. Again, there is a ton of competition, so some of these players are going to get lost in that part of the process. But I think that there are some players like Aisheem Young that are looking to rediscover their ability, and playing for a Memphis team that's going to give you that opportunity could be exactly what you need. At the nickelback, the Tiger position, Kamari Wilson comes in from Arizona State to potentially take that role. So you have another new face that is going to be part of it. And again, in the secondary, you need to communicate. You have two returners that are going to have to help these new faces understand how we make certain calls, how we say certain things, and that will take some time. But the talent is definitely there. If they can get all on the same page, this is a group that can be better. And this is a unit that struggled last year at times. Even though you had quite a bit of talent, you had quite a bit of returning talent, you struggled. 119th against the pass. That is partially on the defensive line. That's also going to be on the secondary. So if that group can get better, you feel really good about what the Memphis Tigers can do in 2025. The schedule, like I said before, gives you some time to kind of get off the runway, if you will, to get to that takeoff point. Chattanooga, at Georgia State, at Troy. Now, Georgia State and Troy, those are teams that in the past have given Memphis a little bit of trouble, especially when they're going through a transition. But those are teams that Memphis should beat. I don't think they should have any concerns about beating those two teams. There were two teams at the bottom of the Sun Belt. But again, they're two road games, so that's tough. You also have to work through the urge to look to that September 20th game against Arkansas at home. It's a home game, and in the past, home games for the Memphis Tigers against Power 4 teams have been really electric, have been really fun. You have to be 3-0 going into that point, and you have to focus on those first three games. You can't get caught looking ahead because Georgia State beat Vanderbilt last year. Georgia State is capable of beating Memphis early in the season. You have to make sure you're focused on your process and getting this new starters, and there are a lot of them, up to speed. The Arkansas game is going to be tough, but that is a team that is got, Sam Pittman's on the hot seat. He is coaching for his job this year. That is a game that Memphis could make things a lot more difficult if they're able to pull off the upset. After that, you have to go to FAU. The Owls will be a better team in 2025 and a tough team to beat. Hosting Tulsa is not going to be easy either, especially after that 2-game stretch. You have to, again, lock into your process and understand that it's not about winning the big ones. You have to be able to win to the point where you're going to be competing for a conference title. And the conference play is not going to be easy either. Once you get off that bye week, you go to UAB. I don't really have too many concerns about UAB right now, but you do host USF the week after. That is a team that will be competing for a conference championship. Then you go to Rice before hosting Tulane and going to ECU. Tulane was in the conference championship last year. ECU is going to be competing for a conference title this year. Now, you don't have to face Army, but you do face Navy at the end of the season. So if this is going to be a team that competes for a conference championship, you're going to get every opportunity to do that. You have multiple contenders on your schedule, and if you are locked and loaded and potentially undefeated going into that final week of the season, I'm really excited about what Memphis can do. Ryan Silverfield is a winner. He's proven that already. Can he take that next step? That's the biggest question. It's going to be hard with all the new faces this year, but if he's able to get those pieces to play as a collective unit, to play really well, this is going to be a fun team to watch. It might take some time to get there, but we're going to know by the Arkansas game what kind of team this is going to be. And in the second half of the season, if they are the team that we expect them to be, they're going to be a fun team to watch, even against tough competition.